Nearly doesn't count. 3 words spoken in the film almost in passing, like they don't matter, but they do, because they contain Tommy Shelby's entire life. A man who almost got out, almost loved, almost became free, who survived the war, rose from the slums of Birmingham, outplayed kings and prime ministers, and still remained almost. And there's another line in this film, about the war inside your own head. It lands like a diagnosis, and once you hear it, you'll understand why Tommy Shelby could never quite reach a finish line. Today we are breaking down Peaky Blinders, the Immortal Man, the ending of a story that ran more than 10 years. Hi, I'm Vadim Jason, and today we are not going after a plot. You already know the plot. We are going deeper, to what's underneath it, to why this film is the right ending point for this story. Let's go. Here is the question I want to hold in front of us for this entire breakdown. Can a man who has been at war his entire life, first in the trenches of France, then on the streets of Birmingham, then in the corridors of Parliament, can he ever actually stop? Or does the war inside his head keep going regardless of whether it's ended on the outside? By the end of this video, the phrase "nearly doesn't count" is going to sound completely different to you, I promise. Tommy Shelby wasn't born this way. That's important to understand, and the film remembers it, even when it doesn't say it out loud. There was a before. Before France, before the trenches, before the gas attacks and the mud, where young men lost not only their comrades, but something inside themselves, something that doesn't have a precise name, but that could roughly call the ability to simply live. The war turned him into a tool, precise, cold, effective, and he took that tool and applied it to business, to politics, to the people around him. It worked brilliantly. The Shelbys became an empire, but there's a problem with tools. They don't know how to rest. The Immortal Man is a story about a man who no longer needs to fight. The external wars are over. The enemies are defeated or bought. The power is there. The money is there. And he stands, not knowing what to do with hands that have only ever known the thing. Notice how this film is shot. The directional instinct is the same. Emphasis on cool, on texture, on every frame hitting hard. Tommy on screen always occupies space. He doesn't just stand, he owns the room. That hasn't changed, but the tone has changed. Before, that coolness read as admiration. Look at this, a self-made man. Now, that same coolness reads differently, like an elegy, like a portrait of a man who put on armor so long ago he no longer remembers what's underneath. And that is the fundamental difference between young Tommy and the one we see in this film. Not the lines on his face, not the grey. The armor is the same, but the cost is different. Young Tommy wore it as a weapon, older Tommy wears it as a prison. So who are you when the war outside is over? When there's no one left to defeat, no one to outplay, nowhere left to go? The answer to that question lives nearly, literally nearly, in a man who is 25 years old, and in whom Tommy sees something he stopped seeing in the mirror a long time ago. 25 years old, that's the age of which Tommy Shelby was already a machine, already had the war behind him, already started building the empire, already made the first choices that could not be undone. His son is at the beginning of that road, and here's what's interesting. The son looks like his father, outwardly. The same walk, the same squint, the same way of carrying himself as if he doesn't care when actually he does. The same bravado, the same outward toughness that's supposed to tell the world, I am not afraid, I am not in pain, I am fine. Tommy sees right through it. He invents that mechanism. He's been wearing it for 40 years. He knows how it works from the inside and what it's hiding. Behind the son's toughness hides what Tommy buried in himself long ago. The remnants of humanity, the ability to feel without turning feeling into tactics. In the son that's still alive, barely, but alive. And that's what makes their relationship the most tense part of the film. Not the villain, not the external conflict. The sense between two men, one of whom knows where this road ends, and the other who is only just stepping onto it. Tommy looks at his son and sees a crossroads. That crossroads. The one he passed himself a long time ago, and choose the wrong way, or the right way without understanding the price. What is he passing on to his son? That's the real question. Experience, yes. Protection, yes. A name, money, connections, yes. But something else is being passed on too. Something no one concisely chooses. A way of seeing the world. A way of not trusting. A way of turning everything around you into chessboard. A curse is passed on just as easily as a name. And Tommy knows it. The question is there still time to change something? Or has the train already left and the sun is already on the track that leads to the same place? But before we answer that, we need to look at something else in this film. At the man standing on the other side, who, if we're being honest, is uncomfortably easy to understand. Tim Roth does one thing better than most actors of his generation. He makes the villain logical, not scary in the sense of monster, not repulsive, logical. The kind where you follow the chain of reasoning, step by step, even if at the end you arrive at the conclusion that he has to be stopped. That's a rare quality. Most villains in cinema exist as a function, an obstacle for the hero, a source of danger, an engine for the plot. They do bad things because they are the villain. The logic is circular. The antagonist of the Immortal Man is built differently. He has a system, an eternal consistency. He doesn't just want money or power, he wants to be right. He is convicted, and that conviction, which you can understand even if you don't share it, is what makes him genuinely dangerous. But here, what matters? If you look carefully, the antagonist and Tommy are made of the same material, the same breed, the same war in their biography, literally or metaphorically, the same habit of turning the world into a system that can be controlled. The difference is the choice. Tommy, for all his darkness, kept something, a thread, thin, often invisible, but it's there, to his son, to the memory of who he was before, to the idea that there are things you don't do even for the sake of winning. The antagonist cut that thread, or it was never strong enough to begin with, and when the final confrontation between them happens, it's not a hero defeating a villain, it's one version of a man meeting another version, and the viewer, if they're watching honestly, can be entirely sure who to root for. Because the difference between them isn't nature, it's choice, and that choice is always harder than there is a war going on inside. You know what got me the most? Not the final scene, not the villain, one line about the war inside your own head, because it's not about Tommy Shelby, it's about anyone who carries something inside and thinks they have already dealt with it. Where's the line in this film? I won't quote it word for word, but the meaning is this: the longest wire is the one inside your head, because it has no ceasefire, no signing of surrender, no moment there you can say, that's it, it's over, I won. Tommy Shelby came back from the First World War, but the war didn't come back with him. It was already inside, and it never left. Every decision he makes is the decision of a man at war. Always calculate the threat, never relax, keep everyone at a distance, sufficient to make their loss survivable. Don't allow yourself to be happy, because happiness is vulnerability, and vulnerability gets you killed. This isn't paranoia, it's adaptation. Once it saved his life, but adaptation to war is a disability in a world without one. Now about the music. Many people say, strange choice of soundtrack for a film set in the 1930s. The music doesn't fit the era. It sounds like it's from somewhere else in time. Exactly, that's not a mistake, that's a message. Tommy Shelby's story is timeless, because Internal was timeless. A man who can exit survival mode, that's not a 20th century problem. That's not a Birmingham problem or a problem of the trenches of France. It's human, universal, It happened in every era, in every setting. The soundtrack is telling us, don't think this is a story from back then. This is a story from right now, always from right now. And now, nearly doesn't count falls into place. Tommy Shelby was almost his entire life, almost free, but the war inside kept hold. Almost happy, but happiness felt like a trap. Almost human, but a weapon doesn't know how to simply be. Not because he was weak, not because he didn't try hard enough, but because the war in his head left no room for enough. It always demanded more. One more enemy, one more victory, one more step. Immortal is not someone who doesn't die. Immortal is someone the war inside cannot finally break. Someone who keeps going in spite of it. Not by defeating it, simply in spite of it. Let's go back to the beginning. Nearly does not count. That lands differently now, doesn't it? They tend to think of it as a hard rule. Almost doesn't count means failure, means not enough, means it was for nothing. But the ending of this film offers a different reading. Tommy Shelby made it, not to victory, in the way we would have defined it 20 years ago, not to peace, not to the war inside finally going quiet, but he made it to the end, his end, to a point where the story can close, not because everything is fine, but because everything has been said. And that is the right ending for this story, not a happy ending. A happy ending would have been a lie. People with this kind of war inside don't get happy endings. They get moments, brief, real, precious, precisely because they are rare, not a tragedy. A tragedy would have been too simple an answer, too convenient, something more precise. A man who spent his whole life almost reaching his own enough, not perfect, not complete, but his nearly does not count. But Tommy Shelby made it. Sometimes that's the only thing you can do with the war inside. Just make it to the end. Has this ever happened to you? You watch one film, then the next one, and the same actor shows up. Completely by accident, no searching, no plan. We just finished breaking down Dune, and here's Rebecca Ferguson again. Like cinema itself decides what we watch next. It happens to me all the time. Write in comments, does this happen to you? I'd love to put together a collection of those coincidences. If this breakdown was for you, you know what to do. Until next time.